You know, a little bit earlier we heard the story of Gideon, and in fact, Gideon's story is pretty incredible because if you actually go and if you look up the story of Gideon in the Bible, if you go to read it, you're going to find that whenever we first see Gideon, he's doing something that he should not be doing. He's doing something kind of strange, actually. Whenever we go and we find Gideon in the story, you see that Gideon is hiding. He's not going out, he's not being brave, he's not going out and facing this enemy that's bullying them around. He's actually hiding from the enemy. He's doing something that you should not be doing. But then all of a sudden, the angel shows up, and the angel says, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." And there's Gideon, he's hiding, and he looks at the angel and he says, hang on just a second. Do you see what I'm doing here? If you don't mind, could you keep it down a little bit because I'm actually trying to hide from the enemy out there. I'm not a mighty man of valor, okay? But the angel's there and he says, no. You are a mighty man of valor. But Gideon says, no, I'm not that person, okay? I'm not brave, all right? I can't do that. I can't do this, all right? I'm hiding over here. And what Gideon has done is, it's kind of interesting. He's actually gone and he's done what we've been talking about over the past couple nights. He's gone and he's put a label on himself. He's basically gone and he said, I am weak. I'm weak. He said, I'm weak, okay? I'm not brave. I'm not strong. I am weak. I am hiding over here. And it's just like he went and he put on a label. But you know, not only that, the angel hangs around and he says, no. The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. And he says, okay. So if I'm supposed to be this mighty man, get this, okay? Not only am I weak, but if you look at my family, I am actually the weakest person of my family. He says, I am the weakest person in my family. I'm the weakest person. And so not only now has he put on this label, but he's actually gone, and after he's put on this label of saying, I am weak, he's gone and he said, I am the weakest person. Now he's looking around at his family members, and not only is he wearing that label that's weighing him down, but he's starting to compare himself to other people. So it's like he's got this label that's on, and it's like he's coming over here on the treadmill of comparison that we talked about last night. And it'd be like if I left this bag on my back and then I went and I turned this up to full speed as fast as it could go and I started running. This is what Gideon is doing right now. He's saying, not only am I weak, but I am the weakest person in my family. If I were to turn this on right now and try to run, this would be a very, very bad situation. I would get seriously injured here. But this is where Gideon is at. But then the angel says this. No, hang on. The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. He says, okay, not only am I the weakest person of my family, all right, but my family is the weakest of our tribe. The angel says, no, you're a mighty man of valor. He says, okay, all right, how about this? Not only am I the weakest of my family is the weakest of our tribe, but our tribe is actually the weakest of all the tribes. Do you see what I'm saying here? The angel says, no. The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Gideon had a choice to make. He could choose what was he going to believe. Was he going to believe that he was the weakest, or was he going to believe that he was a mighty man? You know, I think if we'd be honest, and I'll be the first one to be honest here, I think that a lot of us, especially over the past couple days, maybe we've begun to realize that we are in a similar place that Gideon is in. You know, as we begin talking about labels in our small groups, we talked about what labels do we have. Maybe you realize that for a while now, you've been carrying around a label on the inside that's a heavy burden. It hurts on the inside, but you've been carrying around for a little too long. Maybe if you'd be honest, maybe this morning as we talked all about who are we comparing ourselves to, maybe you begin to realize that not only do you have a label, but you've been comparing yourself as well. And it's just like having this heavy backpack full of rocks over here and running on this treadmill. After a while, we're going to get worn out. We're going to get tired. And over time, eventually, we're going to get injured over here. It's not going to be good. I think if we'd be honest, maybe we'd realize that we're in a similar place, just like Gideon was in. For me, I have two older brothers. My oldest brother, he's four years older than me. My middle brother, he's 2 years older than me. And so growing up, I would always look to them to see how was I doing. In sports, I would look to them and, man, They're always a little bit taller than me. They're older. They're always a little bit bigger than me, a little bit faster than me. Then when we go to school, my oldest brother, Ben, he's really, really smart. And so I'd say, man, he's smarter than me. He gets better grades than me. And so for a long time, I felt like Gideon. I felt weak. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I had this thing on the inside of me that was weighing me down, that was holding me back. And I was just wasting my time comparing myself to my brothers. And I think maybe you might be in the same situation. And if you are, here's some good news, because tonight what we're going to do is we're going to figure out exactly what we can do in order to stop wearing around these labels that are weighing us down, in order to stop comparing ourselves so that we can go out and we can do the good things God has planned for us. But in order for us to stop all of this madness over here, we're going to have to answer a few questions first, all right? So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and I want you to think about these answers. You don't have to say them out loud, just think about them really quick. The first one is this. If we're talking about labels, which we are, then the first question is simply this. Who has the right to label something? You don't have to say it out loud, just think about it for a second. Who has the right to label something? Like any random object you can think of. Who has the right to label something? Now, there's a couple answers to this, all right? The first answer is simply this. The first answer is the maker. The maker has the right to label something. Let me show you what I mean. If I go out and if I buy a Nike t-shirt or an Under Armour t-shirt, they have the right to put their logo, to label that shirt as Nike or Under Armour. They can put that logo right there because they made that t-shirt. They can label that t-shirt as theirs because they made it. They're the maker. So, who has the right to label something? The maker does. But there's also a second answer to this. The second one is just as important. The second one is simply this. The purchaser. The purchaser. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say if I go out and I buy a dog, right? If I go out and buy this dog, I can name that dog and label that dog any name that I want. I can call him Jim if I want. I can call him Bob if I want. I can put them together. I can call him Jim Bob if I want to. It doesn't matter. I can name that dog anything that I want. I can label that dog any name that I want because I am the purchaser. I went out and I bought that dog. That dog belongs to me now. So I can label that dog. So, first question, pretty simple. Who has the right to label something? Remember, two answers here, simple, maker and purchaser. But we're not just talking about labeling random objects. We're talking about the labels that you and me wear around with us, that maybe we can't see, but we can feel on the inside. So the next question is this. Don't answer out loud. Think about it right up here. Who then has the right to label you? Don't answer out loud. Just think. Who has the right to label you? Here's what we're going to do. To find out, we're going to take a look at our verse. Pretty simple. Ephesians 2:10. Let's take a look at it. I am God's masterpiece. He made me new in Christ Jesus so I can do the good things He planned for me. Right now, we're just going to look at the very first line. The first line right up here just says, I am God's masterpiece. I am God's masterpiece. You know, we've been saying that word masterpiece a lot. We've been saying this verse a lot this entire week. But here's what's awesome about that. This word, masterpiece, if you went and if you looked it up in the dictionary, if you looked it up online to find out what does that word actually mean, it's pretty incredible because if you look it up, it literally means an artist's best piece of work. Masterpiece literally means an artist's best piece of work. So every time that we say this verse, what the Bible is telling us and what you are saying out loud is that you are God's best. It's saying that whenever God made you and when He crafted you, He gave you gifts and talents on the inside of you. He made you look the way that you look for a very specific reason so you can go out and do things that He has for you to do. He created you as His masterpiece. He created you as His best piece of work. That is a huge deal. You are God's best because that's how much He loves you. That is a big deal. So the first question or the second question is simply, who has the right to label you? Well, our verse is telling us right here that God is our maker. We are his masterpiece. He crafted us. So, our maker does, which is God. And here's what's awesome about God. God says, yes, I have the right to label you. That's what God says. But then he also says this. He says, let me just double confirm it for you, just to make it super clear that you understand who has the right to label you. He goes on, and let's take a look at it. Not only is he our maker, but let's find out what our verse has to say about the second part. He says, he made me new in Christ Jesus. You know what that second line is literally talking about? It's talking about how God sent his son Jesus to come to this earth for you, to die on a cross, to be raised back from the dead, to pay a price and to purchase you as a part of his family. He sent his own son to purchase you, to make sure that you could be a part of God's family, to make sure that you someday could go to heaven and live with God and with Jesus forever in that amazing place. So, who has the right to label you? Number one, our maker, which is God. We are his masterpiece. But then number two, our purchaser as well, which is God. He sent his son Jesus just for you. So who has the right to label you? Our maker, our purchaser, which is God. And here's what's awesome about that. That means that no one else has the right to label you. That means that the kid down the street, he doesn't have a right, she doesn't have a right to label you. That means that that person at school, they don't have a right to label you. That means that your brother, your sister, they don't have a right. That means that even your mom or your dad, they don't have the right. And here's the craziest one. That means that even you don't have a right to label yourself. Even you don't have the right to label yourself because only one person does, our maker and our purchaser, which is God. God is the only one that can label you because you are his best piece of work. But here's what's crazy, all right? Here's what's crazy. Even if we believe that we're God's best, and even if we believe that God is the only one that can label us, what's going to happen is this. We may turn down, we may stop picking up those labels that hurt, those ones like fat, like dumb, like worthless. We may say no to those labels. We may believe that God's the only one that can label us, but eventually what's going to happen is this. We're going to go out, and we're going to see something. Maybe we're going to see something in a sibling, or at a friend's house. You may be at a friend's house, and you may say, man, my friends, they got a bigger house than we do. Their family has nicer cars than us. You may have a friend or a sibling that's, man, they get better grades than I do. They're smarter than I am. What's going to happen is even if we can say no to some of these labels, we're still going to be tempted all the time to look around and to compare ourselves to other people, to get back on this treadmill of comparison over here and wear ourselves out comparing and not getting any closer to the good things God has for us. So, in order for us to stop comparing ourselves, the last question we have to ask is this. I want you to think about it. Don't say it out loud, just think. Who then, if God's the only one that can label us, who then has the right to label you? Who has the right to label you? Then, who is God comparing you to? Who is God comparing you to? Because if we believe that we are God's masterpiece, if we believe that we are God's best piece of work, that means that we're God's best, then the question then, who's God comparing you to? Who is God comparing his best to? The answer is pretty simple. No one. Because the thing is that no one and no thing can ever compare to God's best, which is you. He gave you his best gifts, talents, crafted you the way that you are so you can do good things that he has planned for you. God, when he made you, he gave you his best. And here's what's awesome about God. He's not comparing you to anyone else, so why would we waste our time comparing ourselves to others? There's no point. There's no point in doing it because God isn't doing it, and he's the only one that can label us. He's the one that has the good things for us. What's awesome about God is God Whenever we become a part of his family, he becomes our heavenly Father. And God only says good things about you. What's awesome is this: the labels that God gives you, they're not labels like this bag of rocks back here. They're not labels that are going to weigh you down or hold you back. They're labels that are going to help you get rid of that so you can go forward and do what God has for you. Do the good things he has for you. God will only say good things about you. So if I want you to remember anything tonight, it's simply this. It's this one phrase right up here. Nobody labels me but God. Say it after me. Say nobody labels me but God. Say it again. Say nobody labels me but God. That's a huge deal, because if we believe this, and if we remind ourselves of that every day, we can go out and we can do the good things God has planned for us. But here's what's going to happen. There's still going to be people out there, and you may do this to yourself. You're going to be tempted to put on those labels that hurt, to put on those labels that on the inside they weigh you down and hold you back. But what we have to do is we have to remind ourselves of this phrase. Because the next time that somebody tries to give us this label of dumb or stupid, you're not smart, what we have to say is, no, hang on, no. I don't accept that label, because you don't have the right to label me. Only one person does, and that's God. And God says that I am smart. God says I have the mind of Christ, that I think clearly, that I have wisdom everywhere that I go. God says I'm smart. That's the label I'm going to wear around. The next time that someone comes up to you and they say that you're fat, that you're ugly, that you're too big or you're too small, that you're not good enough, you can say, no, hang on. You may say that to me. You may even feel that way, but you got to say, no. That's not something God would say about me. And God's the only one that can label me. God says that I am beautifully made, that I am made in his image. God made me as his masterpiece. He gave me his best when he crafted me. I'm God's masterpiece. I'm beautifully made. The next time someone comes along and they say that you're worthless, that you're unwanted, that you're a mistake, that type of label, it hurts pretty bad. It'll weigh you down if you let it, if you choose to wear it around. But what you have to say is, no, hang on. I'm not worthless. I'm not a mistake. I don't accept that label, because God's the only one that can label me, and God says that I am his masterpiece. I am God's masterpiece. That means that God made me and God made you. What's awesome about God is God doesn't make mistakes. He made you for a reason. Ultimately, what we have to do is everywhere that we go and everything that we do, we simply have to say, God, I am yours. God, I am yours today. When everything that I do, I am yours. When I go to school, I'm going to think clearly. I'm going to be smart in the decisions that I make, because that's what you've called me to do. God, I am yours. I'm going to go out today and do the good things that you have planned for me, because I am yours. God, I know that I'm here for a reason, that I'm not worthless, that I'm not a mistake. God, I am yours. And when we remind ourselves of this and we say it out loud, we can go out, we can do what our verse is talking about, do the good things God has planned for us. To kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about, we wanted to share a story with you guys. A story of a young man. His name's Braden. A lot of you have probably met Braden before. You probably met him out here at Camp Gulch, because he works out here. But Braden is he's a remarkable young man. Because you see, every single day, Braden has a choice to make. He can choose to put a label on himself and wear it around, one that's going to hurt, one that's going to hold him back. He can choose to compare himself to other people everywhere that he goes, or he can choose to be like Gideon. He can choose to believe what God says about him. We wanted to share Braden's story with you guys, so let's check it out right up here. You know, that's a really big deal. Because, you see, whatever Braden chooses to believe about himself, That's ultimately what he's going to be. That's ultimately what he's going to do. And so it's almost as if every single day that Braden wakes up, it's like he has this blank label. It just says, I am, fill in the blank. And that day, whatever Braden chooses to put in this label, chooses to believe about himself, that's what he's going to be. That's what he's going to do. He has a choice. He chooses to believe what God says about him. He chooses to believe the good things that God says about him. You know, for us, it's the exact same way. Whenever we wake up every single day, it's like we have this blank label. And that day, every day, what are we going to believe about ourselves? What are we going to put in our label? What are we going to wear around? Maybe not where everyone else can see it, but wear around on the inside. What are we going to believe about ourselves? Will we believe what other people say about us, maybe what we feel sometimes, maybe what our thoughts and our doubts say about us, or will we choose to believe what God says about us? And remember, God is the perfect Father. He's the perfect Dad in heaven, and he only says good things about you. But here's the thing. In order for us to accept those labels from God, the good things that he says about us, the first thing we have to do is we have to choose to get rid of those old labels, the ones that other people have said, that maybe we've called ourselves, those labels that are like that bag of rocks that weigh us back, that hold us down, that hurt on the inside. The first thing we have to do is we have to choose to get rid of that label. So today, or here at Camp Dry Gulch, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a chance to do that. In fact, tomorrow morning, after morning chapel in your small groups, what's going to happen is your counselor, they're going to hand you a blank label, blank name tag, and then they're going to hand you a Sharpie. And on that blank name tag, that label, I want you to write down what your label is that you need to give up. What's that label that you've had stuck on for a little too long? What's that label that when you think about it, when you think about yourself, man, you can feel it in here. It hurts. You can feel the heaviness of it, that it's holding you back. What is yours? What's your label that you need to give away, that you need to get rid of? Because here's what's awesome is this. What's going to happen is after you write down that label, that old label that you need to get rid of, what's going to happen is once you write it down, we're going to have you turn it into your counselor. Whenever you hand it into your counselor, what they're going to do is they're going to take it, and whenever you hand it away, it's simply a way of you saying, this old label is not me anymore. I'm not going to believe this about myself anymore. That's not going to be me anymore. And what's going to happen is we're going to take those labels, we're going to gather them together, and we're going to put them up here on this cross. Because here's what happens. Whenever we give away those labels, we're saying goodbye to them. And in a way, what we're doing is this. We're doing what Jesus told us to do. He said, cast your care on me. He says, give me those things that are weighing you down. Give me those things that are hurting you on the inside, that are too heavy for you. Cast your care on me. He says, because he cares for you. Whenever we give those old labels to Jesus, then we can go out and do the good things he has for us and accept the one true label, the true labels that he has for you and for me. You know, I'm going to be the first one to do it. Up here, I have my label, and this is a label I talked about with my small group. And it simply says this. It simply says, not good enough. Maybe for some of you, your label might be like this. Maybe it's different, and that's okay. But I want you to be honest tomorrow. When you go to write down your label, think about it for a second. Maybe we've talked about it already. What is your label? Be honest. Choose to get rid of it this week. And whenever we gather it, we're going to take it and we're going to give it to Jesus. We're going to put it right up here. We're going to stick it on this cross as a way of saying, this right here, this is not me anymore. That's not me. Jesus says that I am good enough. And then what's going to happen in your small group, once you turn in that old label, we're going to give you a new label, a blank name tag. You're going to keep your Sharpie, and then you're going to write out your new label. What God says about you. And honestly, it might even be just the opposite of what you just wrote down. It might be that you're smart, that you're brave, that you're beautifully made, that you're wanted. It might just simply say what this one says right here. It might just simply say, God, I am yours. I am yours. And everything that I do, everywhere that I go, God, I am yours. After you write down that label, that new label of what God says about you, we're going to have you put it on. And we're going to wear it around as a way of saying, this old one, this isn't me anymore. What I'm wearing around today, this is who I am now. This is what I am going to do now. And whenever we choose to do this, from this day forward, what we're going to say is every time we feel this way, no, that's not me. God says that I am this. God, I am yours. We're going to choose to get rid of those old labels tomorrow.